Welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This webinar has been organized by iSolution. I recommend you and I suggest you to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube in order to view all the future updates on this topic and additional topics about gaming industry. My name is Marco Cantarelli, International Sales from iSolution, and I will be your moderator for today's session about secondary lottery as one of the key to diversify the gaming industry from an operator's point of view, the business point of view. Let me start introducing the participants to today's panel. We have with us Darren Sims, co-founder of Private, currently live in Ghana, and we have Garno Weitzman, CEO of the Weitzman Attorney, based in South Africa. Thanks to them, our goal is to reach a brighter view about both legal and business aspects of the secondary lottery. So I would like to thank them. And of course, you all are encouraged to interact as much as possible, asking questions. There will be like a dedicated panel, dedicated moment during the webinar for question and answer. So feel free to write down any questions you have for me and for the speakers of today's panel. To break the ice and avoid the potential misunderstandings during the entire topic discussion, I would like to highlight the fact that we are not talking about national lotteries. We are talking about fixed odds that use the national lottery's drawn numbers as certified results. So we are not talking about buying actual tickets from national lotteries. We are only discussing the secondary lottery betting that uses as a certified result, certified outcome verification, the numbers drawn from worldwide national lottery. So I would like to leave the stage now to Mr. Weitzman, because I briefly introduced the difference between national lotteries and lottery betting, and he is the best person to explain from a legal and regulation point of view this difference and the related aspects. So please.
Gambling industry. I think my mic's just gone on, so I'll just say that again. Thanks, Marco. Thanks for the introduction. I think, like anything else in the gambling industry, things are often a lot more complex than we hope, and have turned out to be somewhat more complex than we have hoped, and or controversial in some ways or another. And I think every product has that, whether it's casino games, whether it's secondary lottery, whether it's some forms of person-to-person gambling, whatever the case may be. Secondary lotteries are a very interesting one, and it's a product that I've been working with for quite some time. So just by way of a little bit of background, out of the 30 years odd that I've been, almost 30 years, a practicing attorney, both here and in South Africa and overseas, I've spent the last 20 years in the gambling industry, advising software providers, operators, and across all the different modalities, and all over the world. And I've been very, very lucky to not have been restricted only to South Africa, but like with a lot of my colleagues around the world, maintain in many senses global practices because of the nature of the borderless nature of online gambling. So that gives you a little bit of background as to, sort of general experience. But when it comes to secondary lotteries, I suppose this is something that's arisen in the last 8 years or so. We all would have heard of the Lottolands of the world. They certainly, quite a stir all over the world, in good ways, and sometimes, I suppose, in more controversial ways with litigation. But nonetheless, they've led the charge on secondary lotteries over the years, and multiple other parties have followed. There are, of course, other well-known companies in the space. And what really separates the kind of products we're talking about here from, say, a national lottery is that you're not participating as a player or offering as an operator a lottery ticket. That's not the nature of the bet we're talking about in issue. It's not the nature of the participation in the gambling gambling exercise that we're talking about here. It is betting on the outcome of a lottery. Now, the distinction is nuanced in some ways, but very important, because what is the difference? And there's a lot of confusion that sometimes happens between betting on the outcome of a national lottery and betting on and actually participating in that lottery. Well, first of all, as a general proposition, secondary lotteries are not pool bets in the way that a national lottery is. Secondly, it is run generally by private operators as opposed to the state or a private operator on behalf of the state. Third of all, it is not necessarily something that is utilized for the purposes of supplementing deficits in state budgets for good causes. Albeit many of the secondary lottery operators who I know are very generous and very charitable from the proceeds of their good fortunes too. So, in many senses, that's what the difference is. But the key difference from a legal perspective is you are betting on the outcome of something happening, which is not dissimilar to betting on a football match or, something within a football match. Soccer in some countries, Darren's in the UK, so it's definitely football. And, betting on a horse race. It is betting on the result of something. And I suppose the first key difference is that whereas you're not participating in the lottery itself, you are able to place a fixed odds and in some instances open bet on the outcome of something happening, on a contingency. Now, some jurisdictions will permit wide contingencies, others are more narrow in how they are in what they permit, but many of them do betting on the outcome of a contingency. Not all places allow or permit betting on the outcome of national lotteries, and some do not permit betting on the outcome of their own lottery, but are more than prepared to allow betting on the outcome of lotteries of other nations or other jurisdictions. I suppose, again, getting back to the key distinction, it is really no different to betting on anything in which you've got to predict the result of something happening. And that's the key here. The fact that it is a national lottery, in many senses, permits one to be able to verify objectively that the result that is occurring in a way that is trustworthy. It's televised, it's broadcast, it's well known. Either X numbers were drawn or they weren't. It's that simple. Or a portion of X numbers were drawn or they weren't. Again, it's that simple. And for me, the difference between that and an RNG is just simply, or RNG generated results are simply that it's perhaps more publicly ascertainable. A player can't go and have a look to see whether an RNG has been tested and certified because they see the results on the internet or in a newspaper or on television or on a website. Whereas obviously if you're betting on the outcome of a national lottery, you can. Now, some places one is finding that to be controversial, including, for example, at the moment in South Africa, there is quite a fight between a number of players and including the incumbent national lottery licensee, as well as the National Lotteries Commission. And other places, no doubt, will follow, because the moment people perceive potentially that there's a threat to the national lottery, and it's often the national lottery operator or the oversight board, they're not going to take that lightly because of the kind of revenue and the purposes for which the revenue is produced in a national lottery. But once one actually pulls this apart, one realizes that it is not a national lottery. It's not competing with the national lottery, and an argument certainly is always preferred that the fact that one is betting on the outcome of a national lottery does not mean that somebody will go and rather bet rather than buy a lottery ticket. Now, the odds are obviously fixed. The odds, whilst fixed, may have a limitation on maximum payout. And in some places, there is a concern about what we would refer to as splitting the jackpot on tier 1 and tier 2 prizes. So, for example, the easiest example of that is, from my understanding, and bear with me because I'm not an operator, but my understanding is that if in the underlying lottery upon which there's a successful bet, there are multiple winners, the jackpot in the tier 1 or top prizes in the bet may also be split amongst multiple parties. Now, in some jurisdictions, or multiple winning bettors, so that if, for example, it was $1 billion that could be won, and there were 2 winners, each would only win 500 million and not $1 billion. And there's some controversy sometimes in that regard, but nothing that, in my view, is insurmountable. And certainly from the regulators I've dealt with, that is fine, and bets are capable of being limited by contract, effectively, by terms and conditions, as long as they are cast correctly. But it is certainly one of those interesting products which are which are very, very popular. I think from a regulatory perspective, regulators are just very keen to ensure that when advertising or making it available, and particularly under some sort of a bookmaking license or sports betting license on a fixed odds bet on the outcome of contingency, that punters are aware that they are not participating in the lottery, and that in fact they are placing a bet on the outcome of a contingency in the same manner as they may be placing a bet on the outcome, I mentioned earlier, of the results of a football game or the result of a horse race. And I think that's the way one has to construe it. There's no magic about it. The only magic potentially is the question and the controversy can be around splitting of jackpots on a fixed odds or open basis with multiple winners, and particularly in circumstances where those jackpots are underwritten, tier 1 and tier 2 level, or tier A and tier B, depending on who you're talking to, level jackpots are achieved and underwritten. So, but I think these products have proved immensely popular around the world, and certainly well capable of regulation.
Thank you, Garon. Very, very good recap of the situation, and I think that you touched really many interesting aspects about the secondary lottery, not only related to the legal perception, but also from the user experience. Because you mentioned, of course, that the results are easily checked or can be easily verified directly by the bettor. It's not. It's something that potentially gives to the punters a huge or increased confidence, because they are not betting on something that is based on RNG or based on some results managed by a specific provider, but they can autonomously go online and check directly the results of the specific national lottery they bet onto as a fixed odds. So that for sure is one aspect that you mentioned. Another one is related to the both the market type, basically, and the fixed value. So in this case, the punters can take an informed decision about the betting is placing, about the ticket he is placing, because he knows in advance the odds, he knows in advance the multiplier, the potential winning, that of course can be kept like you anticipated. And at the same time, we are looking at potentially, from an operator perspective, a huge number of offer, a wide offer, because all the numbers drawn worldwide from national lotteries can be used as outcome for potential tickets. And not only in terms of selecting the specific results, but also a combination of them. You can bet on the even number, on the odd number, you can bet on combination of number. There is potentially the selection of the bonus ball or number in specific groups. So all these things, I think, that concurs in creating a very good leverage for an operator to adopt a secondary lottery product together with sports betting, together with the other offer that they want to provide to the final bettors. And I think this is something quite good. I would like to understand which is the feedback from Darren, potentially, because I know, Darren, that you have a massive experience in that field. So maybe the decision that you are taking of adding a secondary lottery to a sport betting product together with maybe some online casino is based on some of this leverage. And of course, feel free to give us a brief introduction of yourself.
Sure. So thank you for that, Marco. I'm Darren. I've been in and around the gaming industry for probably just spot on 20 years, somewhere roughly around there. Predominantly, my experience has been in the UK market, and we've run a host of businesses from bingo to casinos to lotto type products in the past. Why we particularly like the lottery is, as Marco touched on, it's a very simple product. And what we see is when you can really introduce products to your players that tick a couple of boxes. One is simple. It's a very easy adoption and take up. It's not a complex game. It's not complex where you have to educate your audience about the product. So lottery definitely ticks that box. As Marco's already mentioned, you have a secondary product that you can introduce to the lottery, which is you can start to introduce bets on what's the total value of the balls, odds, evens, what number will come first, what number will come last, so on and so forth. So that gives you another natural extension. Also, what we see is with these type of products, players love them for an additional two reasons. One is it's a life-changing sum. It's a small stake for a potentially massive outcome. And that's what is probably the thing that excites us most about it for the African market where we focus in, is because where we see in sports betting, you've got your single line bets versus your accumulators and multiples. The multiples are really akin to a lottery product in the sports world. It's someone taking a small stake bet on 5, 10, 15, 20 legs all to come, and it's really that massive lottery payout should it come off. And at the same time, again, Marco touched on, it's got a certain element of transparency in terms of the results, just like sports does. And additionally, for the player, there's a level of control. When you go in and play in a slot machine, you push spin, you're not really in control of the outcome of that slot, okay? But if you place in a sports bet, if you place in a bet on a lottery, you have the control of these are the numbers. I have, to some element. I mean, obviously you're not doing the draw itself, but you have to some element of, these are my lucky numbers, and to a large degree, I think I can influence the outcome. So, for all these various reasons, we very much like lottery. I think we've just introduced it this week. It's just gone live on our site. A little bit too early to talk about stats and take up because we're still playing around with the configurations and the settings and all the rest of it. But we have great hopes for the product, specifically in the markets we operate, in the markets we'll be going to, and also just for the natural extension of where the product can go and how it can develop. So that's a brief overview from why we as an operator are really excited about this product.
Thank you for that. And just to proceed on the line that you opened, I think that Like if I look at the last, like Garon suggested, like, I don't know, 5 to 8 years, we have seen a growth, a general growth across some of the verticals into the gaming industry. And one of them has been like the secondary lottery. And that is, I think, a very good opportunity, like in retail, for example, very good, very valid option of offering retail, especially if we look at the fact that the secondary lottery is resisting quite well against the assault of live casino. That recently, for example, in South Africa, they have been like recently quite allowed, and there is like some new opportunities, and the growth of live casino is very strong. But secondary lottery is one of the products that is resisting this assault in a very good fashion. So that could be something again that testify the fact that is a good additional offer for general operators. I don't know if there are some questions. Let me check if there are some questions. Please, again, I encourage you all to interact with us and with the speakers if you have specific questions on the topic or something that you want us to better define.
Marco, what I just wanted to say, and I think keeping, I'm not an operator, but where I've been very, very lucky is I work with very many operators, and it gives me, and I obviously like to talk about the commercial side of things as well, because I think as an attorney advising clients, the more commercially aligned one is with one's clients, the better the advice one's given. And commercially sensible. Otherwise, in my view, it's quite worthless. So, and without any question, it's not just secondary lotteries, it's any numbers games linked and in the sports sort of betting environment or connected or offered in, complementary to a sports betting environment. There are bookmakers in South Africa, I certainly, not going to mention names, but who makers who are 70% of their revenues generated through numbers type games, whether that be secondary lottery or quick bets on RNG generated numbers, whatever the case may be. Numbers games seem to occupy a very important role as a complementary product, and I agree with you when you the observation about casino and how one sees casino versus numbers products in a second as a complementary or parallel product or additional modality or product line in a multimodal offering has been incredibly strong. It appeals to people. Football matches, if you're betting on a football match, there's only so much betting you can do, but numbers games can be offered on a much more rapid and much more regular basis. And so they've proved exceptionally popular, whatever the numbers game may be. Secondary lotteries are, of course, very strong because secondary lotteries generally offer a far greater opportunity as far as the quantum, the sheer quantum of the top level payouts compared to, say, your quick numbers games. But nonetheless, they are just another variation of a numbers game in many senses.
Yeah, I mean, 100% right. If I can add to that, there's also what we saw when we in the UK operate in the UK. There was very much a bingo as a game, being a numbers game, was very much more socially accepted into the psyche of players that this wasn't necessary. I'm not a gambler if I'm playing bingo games. And when you're coming down and you're playing live dealer or you're playing slot machines at big value spins, there was almost this like, am I a gambler? I'm not a gambler. And people didn't want to mention it. We're phone players. They would say, please don't phone. My partner's not aware that I'm playing. But really, when it comes to number-based games, lottery and be it the secondary market, it's so much part of society, and it's again, because it's low values, it's a social norm. All governments offer it. So again, it's a product that people are comfortable with. It's a product they're comfortable to speak to their friends about. I've taken this ticket, that ticket, so on and so forth. So again, for all of these reasons, it's just very much a strong product to offer. And we'll be expecting, as Garen said, a big take up just in terms of player participation, and then hopefully extending that onto the revenue side of things.
Thank you, Darren.
So, yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
Okay, there is a question for Mr. Garen.
Yeah. So, look, the South African lottery doesn't like betting on the South African lottery. Secondary lottery operators are, however, offering lottery bets on all other lotteries, whether they are Euro Millions, Powerball, I don't know. I can't even Super ENA. I mean, there are a number of secondary lotteries on which it's based, and I mean, Spanish lottery. But SA doesn't like all the SA lotteries. I mean, it's somewhat controversial in South Africa at the moment, and we have had some case law coming out of the Mpumalanga, Mbombela High Court, which has now gone on appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal, and has potentially taken on a far wider implication than just secondary lotteries. So we'll have to see what happens in South Africa. Our view is of course, supportive of our clients who provide secondary lotteries, but it is controversial at the moment in South Africa, and will continue to be for a while. But it's not surprising. Am I aware of the most popular lotteries in the market? The answer to that is no. I'm not aware. That is something certainly from an operational point of view. What I do know is that the secondary lottery operators here really do provide a substantial gamut of the kind of available lotteries that are out there. I mean, from those that are US states and across US, Euro Millions, so Super ENA Lotto, Spanish Lotto. I mean, it's pretty much everything because they're objectively ascertainable. Insofar, I think there was a further question about and whether betting software is considered like a regular sports betting module. The answer is yes. The games themselves are not RNG outcome decided. So they are treated by gaming regulators here like any other bet on the outcome of a contingency. There's no RNG testing because you're certainly not RNG testing the national lottery, which is producing the result. That's not necessary in the circumstances. And what the boards would require is to approve the rules of the game, the payout tables, the payout limitations and things of that nature. Anything else really is a feed that is coming through on a bet that is placed on your normal wagering record keeping software, which has to be certified for every bookmaker in South Africa and obtained from a licensed manufacturer licensees after the wagering record keeping software, or IMS as others know it, has passed certification in South Africa. So there's nothing special about the actual bet itself from a regulatory or technical perspective.
I would like to extend this second question about the fact that the software can be considered or not a regular sport betting, and therefore there is like need or no need of a specific certification. I would like to extend this question as a confirmation also to Mr. Sims, to Darren. Did you need a specific certification in Ghana to launch it, like you said, at the beginning of this week?
No, the provincial regulator who's granted the bookmaker license will either approve it as a contingency or not. It doesn't require additional technical testing or integration. the rule in the South African context, at least, the rules of the game and the payout tables and limitations and terms and conditions relating to the betting activity have to be approved by the board. But it's no different. There's nothing special that has to be added on or done in addition to one's IMS, one's approved IMS that one is using as a bookmaker. It's seen as a contingency that is occurring in the same way as a football game.
Thank you.
And
thank you. And this
rules you got your rules relating to betting on a football game, your in-play, I mean, there's a whole set of rules relating to the different sports. It's the same thing. It's approval of the rules and publication of the rules on an operator site as to the contingency that's been bet upon.
It makes sense to me, especially for the logic that the secondary lottery is based on too. I was asking Darren, like for a confirmation in Ghana, if there is like the same application, same perception.
It's exactly as Garen mentioned. There was nothing extra that we had to do from that perspective.
Thank you for that. I think there is an additional question, if it can be put online. And here it is. If when discussing the growth of secondary lottery, do you know, or do you believe, Garen and you can both speak, if there are specific regions or areas in Africa where the end user, the final user, can prefer the most a specific type of betting, this type specifically, like a specific region where it's a very strong engine for revenue or for player acquisition and retention?
I mean, I'll just give my 2 cents worth. Look, I think we are just focused on Ghana at the moment and West Africa. I think just from the product having been around, it's probably the oldest product in the gaming/gambling market. Goes back, predates the internet by many years. So I think there's such a wide adoption of lotteries, be it via countries and now with secondary markets, that I can't speak specifically that one region or one country will be bigger than the rest. You can obviously look at your countries in Africa, be it South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya. Those are your big three. Ethiopia is starting to come on board. They have obviously the population. But I think that this is a product that will be extremely popular, across the continent as a whole.
Look, I mean, I'm probably close to it as an operator would, but that makes sense to me. I would certainly think that's a correct rendition. I mean, and a number of the traditional gambling markets in Africa, and when I say traditional, I mean the larger gambling markets, of course, are quite conducive to a variety of gambling products and a known gambling population, like like your Ghanas, your Kenyas, your Nigerias, your South Africas. But it's interesting to hear about Ethiopia. Not surprising. There will be others. I mean, some people would probably say, and I've heard it said DRC, relating to lotteries and people wanting to go in and thinking there's a commercial case on lotteries and lottery type betting in the DRC. But I'm not really, that's not my expertise to be able to really comment on. I'd listen to Darren there, not me.
Understood. And a potential extension of that question could be if, since it is, like you said, a pre-gaming online, a pre-internet gaming vertical, if it sticks with a certain age of the population inside a specific country, or since we can see that it's very strong and reliable, even after the gaming industry has moved online, if it's like it is spreading to different ages, even younger section of the population, maybe in Ghana, in Kenya, or Ethiopia. Like you said, of course, the population has a different distribution. That could be another quite interesting point.
Look, I think it's a product that's suited to young and to old. I think, again, because it's that life-changing amount, it's just a product that it kind of appeals to everybody. It's very simple to play, and again, you've got like a fixed date that you're looking forward towards a draw. I just think numbers games are so inherently popular in all cultures. As Gary will probably remember, I grew up in South Africa. I remember Fafi. You'd walk in the street, guys would be on the corners of the streets playing this numbers game, which was Fafi, and you'd have a local agent taking bets. Again, in any game, I think that's just inherent with numbers. I think it's going to be extremely popular from young to old.
Thank you. And I think that's again a quite strength point for this specific kind of gaming industry, because now we are in a time period where all the operators fight each one against the other, trying to innovate, trying to widen their offer, trying to propose something new or something something that can be recognized to the final bettors population, to the user base. So this is where potentially a secondary lottery can come in as an additional, easy to set up, easy to understand for the final bettor product that will help with both the acquisition and the retention. Let me check if there are some additional questions from the audience. Okay, not right now. So I can quickly proceed with the webinar, just updating you about the fact that iSolution recently completed its new lottery product, and I honestly think that it could be like a very good tool within the hands of the operators. So that is something that is strictly connected with the topic of the overall webinar. Okay, please go on with the question. Let's wait a couple of minutes and we will put the question directly on screen for the speakers.
Sorry, guys, I'm just checking something. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I can also read the question if you want. In other African countries, are you seeing many lotteries where the ticket purchase price is variable? Like the example is like you can stake your ticket with an amount ranging from 50 to 2,000, and then you can only win a multiple of your stake, like with a cap potential winnings. Thank you, Jürgen, for the question.
Yeah, so I think, again, because it's using the lottery results just as effectively as your RNG. It's not like the traditional lottery. It's R1 or $1, to buy into the lottery. Here, as Marco said, you can choose a wide range of what your stake will be, and the multiplier effect just comes onto that. So again, it makes itself quite attractive to players that are looking for a small bet, or guys are looking to go for a larger bet. It also allows for multiple draws. You can offer the same, if you have your lucky numbers, you can enter for the next 3-4 draws, so you don't have to remember to keep on coming back each week. Or you can take if you like, a portfolio of different lotteries from around. So yeah, it very much puts the user in control of what that stake is, and ultimately, hence, what the maximum return will be based on the odds outcome. I hope that answers it. I'm not sure.
I think yes, I got your point, Darren. I'm trying to understand if there is something more behind the questions of the amount, ranging, and then a cap limit. Because up to now we have discussed a lot of like a life-changing betting type, where like the stake is quite low, and where the punters have got control, a partial control over the tickets itself. They can see in advance the odds.
Maybe I can just give an extension answer to that question. Is that,
sure,
you know, a natural question could be, oh well, if obviously on a national lottery, a traditional lottery, you know, I'm buying in for a standard coin size, R1, $1, and the prize itself will be the outcome of the pool bets, right? So how do we, as an operator, protect ourselves that if a player starts to put R100, R200, the potential payout can become a serious number, can really affect be it cash flows, so on and so forth. So, you know, within the software itself, you do have the ability to set, you know, this is my maximum exposure to a draw, to a number of draws. So it allows you to manage your risk component of the draw. Obviously, you can always go and look to insure. There are companies out there, I believe Lottoland sell insurance. There are other markets, you know, I've spoken to brokers at Lloyd's where they will offer insurance on secondary markets for lottery. But if you look into self-insure, that the software and the system does allow you to set a maximum exposure, if you like, on a lottery basis.
Thank you, Darren. And I see your last opinion. I agree with you. I think this secondary lottery betting is a product very similar to betting on sports betting. It was one of the initial points that we discussed together with Darren and Garon, and not a pure lottery product. I totally agree. They are not overlapped. I mean, there is no competition between a secondary lottery and a national lottery or a totalizer product. There are two different verticals that, in my opinion, they do not overlap. They do not cannibalize each other, and they can be like both provided as an offer to the final user base. Absolutely. So let's give some more minutes
Marco,
for question and answer. Please.
Yeah, I certainly totally agree. I mean, whilst, you know, they both involve lottery in some way or another, they are notionally, and in my view, from a policy perspective, entirely different products, and the one is not necessarily bad for the other, which is sometimes the argument that is made. Sometimes you'll find a national lottery will argue that secondary lotteries are depriving them of ticket sales and therefore depriving the fiscus of the benefits of the national lottery. But I think that that argument invariably has to fail. The products are separate and distinct. I don't think someone is going to place a fixed odds bet on the outcome of a lottery and not go buy a lottery ticket, or vice versa.
Agreed. Thank you. So I would like to give some more minutes for this section of the webinar about questions and answers, if there are.
I think just while we're waiting for that, just to add to that, again, I think it can be a great product when there's the off season, particularly football. You know, football generally dominates Africa with sports betting. This is a great product. There's always a lottery. You know, there's always a lottery every week. There's a lottery in multiple countries. So again, for you as an operator, it gives you content to communicate with your players, to offer big prizes, you know, to continue to offer them a product with that, call it the accumulator size return, even when we're in the off season for football, or if the international matches for that particular week, and there's less games on offer.
This is a good feedback. I'm reading the feedback from Jürgen, and yes, I like this very much because it is basically confirming what we stated initially during the webinar. And yes, that is quite something. A lot of interest in Kenya for the secondary lottery model. This is for sure a flagship or a strength point for the product itself and for the vertical, for the gaming vertical itself. Thank you, Jürgen. Okay, let's see if we have something else. Otherwise, we are next to the ending of the webinar. Okay, there is a note about the jackpots here. You mean the jackpots in Kenya? Not really attractive. Yeah, because it's like in this case a different approach to the betting type. So agree. I think that if there are no more questions at this time, and our time range is more or less over now, I would like to really, okay, please, Peter. Yeah, let's use these final minutes of the meeting for additional questions. Let's see if the question is pushed online.
It comes through.
I think he's still writing it, so let's give a couple of minutes to him. While we wait for the next question, again, okay. Okay, let's see it on the main screen. We have products that have similar lottery model, but instant draws like win in the next 2 minutes. Do we still consider that as lottery? Yeah, please, Garon. I know that you want to answer that. I have also my opinion.
I'm not sure I do want to answer it. I suppose that is one of the questions that is being asked in a lot of places. What and a lottery is very much a question of what the lottery legislation says in a particular jurisdiction. I mean, I think generally, as a general proposition, a gambling game and a lottery are quite similar by definition. They both involve the purchase of something or payment or the giving of something of value for the opportunity to participate. And I'm not saying this is a general proposition, but both a gambling game is often seen as a game of chance, or overwhelmingly of chance, as opposed to skill. And a lottery is also chance with an opportunity to win a payout or prize. So notionally they are similar, but from a policy point of view, they are totally different and serve different purposes. So I think it's something one could write a thesis on. I'd prefer not to, I suppose, venture an answer to it, because it is something that is probably, going to be argued about in courts all over the world. I think I'll have to reserve my view on that for now, but I could certainly see how various people argue various things. And is it Keno? Is it a lottery? Is it a fixed odds bet? Is it a gambling game?
Thank you, Garen. I think that you gave us a crystal clear idea of the situation.
So it's a bit of a non-answer, but it's because and I'm sorry if I sound like a lawyer. I mean, after almost 30 practice, the odds are that I am going to sound like a lawyer more than anything else. But it's one of those complex issues that really depends on so many factors that I'm not going to do the topic justice here. And quite frankly, I think it's the wrong place to have that debate.
I agree. Thank you. And with so many years of lawyering behind you, it makes sense that you act like one. But yeah, I agree about the point of view.
I try to avoid it, but I sometimes just can't help it.
Well, thank you again. I think that our time for today is now more or less over. I would like again to thank you everybody for participating. I really hope that you enjoyed the webinar. A big thanks to the speakers, both Darren and Garen, that helped us gaining a brighter view over the topic discussed today. And again, like I anticipated earlier, since iSolution recently completed its second iLottery product, there will be a surprise for all the registered people to this specific webinar, and all the additional details about that specific surprise I'm anticipating will be shared by mail. I would like again to thank you all and see you all at our next event.
Great.
Thanks, Marco.
Very nice.
Thank you, Garen. Thank you, Garen.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.